All right, guys. So welcome to Real Money Talk with Cesar and
Alex.
and yeah. So this is our very first podcast that we're throwing out there, and we're welcoming you to just join us and just talk about what the real things are going on in the market, in the economy, in order to leverage from that, learn from that, grow from that, and use it to our advantage. We're both. I can say we're both people that come, we say from the mud. So we definitely grew into where we are today, and we want to keep growing, and we're inviting you along that journey. So this is pretty much what that podcast is about. So we both learn from each other. So we also encourage you to comment, DM us with any other information that you might have on either topic that we touch on, or whatever we talk about. And feel free to debate with us. We like more information be thrown at us, and we'll learn from you, and you guys will learn from us. With that being said, my name is Cesar Rodriguez. I was born in LA, California. Moved out here with my family to Las Vegas, so we are in the Las Vegas market right now. And I grew up here since the age of 8. So I grew up since the age of 8. Went to middle school, high school here. And throughout high school, I was pretty much very involved with sports and athletics. So I'm very big on sports. Moving forward, I joined UNLV as a student. I took the hospitality program. So I majored in hospitality with a concentration in meetings and events. And it's also the number one hospitality school.
It is. It is.
In the world. So that's one of the reasons why I chose it. I mean, we can go more in depth to thinking Cesar, why didn't you go to a different college? Everybody's dreams to go to a different college out of state. Yeah. So me knowing coming here to UNLV, I knew I was gonna save a shit ton of money just because I didn't want to take on any debt, and I knew that I can work at the same time and study to pay off whatever I needed to pay off to go to school. So I went to school, and I was like, I want to be involved in business, and hospitality is touches on business and business administration in a way. So I was like, why don't I do hospitality since it's number one in the world? So.
And we live in Vegas with the strip.
Vegas. I learned my way around the industry. Right now, I would say a leader within the hotel industry. But at the same time, I knew that I was very invested into real estate only because I bought my first home at the age of 21. This is something that I always will be really proud of, just because it's very hard to be young and follow those steps that you need to take in order to get you there. Yeah, it's sacrificing, not going to those few parties, sacrificing, getting 2 jobs and going to school. So that's where I come from. After I bought my first property, I learned so much from real estate that I knew that this was something that can open so many much more doors to me. So I capitalized on that. My first property we could say it's rented right now. So moved that away, and then I bought my second property just this one January. So it's January. So that's 2 down the road, and hopefully we're moving to get a third one pretty soon.
Yeah. And so what exactly led you to want to be a real estate agent?
So one of the things that motivated me the most is that, since I saw these opportunities for investing, I thought to myself, I'm like, man, I could do this. I know so much about real estate now, and when anybody asks me questions, I'm the first one to raise my hand about it. I could represent both. Either most real estate agents join, get their license only to make money, right? And yeah, making money is good and all, but at the same time, I want to have a focus in the investment side where I'm able to help people invest and make this a potential second stream of income.
Yeah.
And a lot of people don't know that they have that opportunity because they are just so pressured into buying that first house. And at the end of the day, you have that first house, but you could have handled that, in a much more different way, in a way that can save you so much more money and time and effort, that you could have set that money, time, and effort aside for that second house. And that's where I think that's my niche, is where I'm not just telling people to come buy a house. I'm telling people, and I'm teaching people how to invest in multiple properties.
Yeah.
And it all starts with one. So the key to many is the one. So.
Yeah. And it's always, getting that first one's always the harder. It's making that first step, learning, your pitfalls and everything, the struggle to get to that first one. And then from there, you can use that as a jumping board to, try and build up from there. So.
Yeah. And along the way, I mean, we've always been bros. We've been bros from UNLV. At UNLV, I went to, I joined a fraternity, so we're both part of a fraternity. Shout out Omega Delta Phi, OE so we have a whole lot of bros, and at the end of the day, there's this quote that goes along, and it goes around, and they say your net worth is your network, and so at the end of the day, it's a group of guys towards one goal, which is graduating, right? And we all like take care of business first. We have our fun, and then we focus on our goals. So that's one thing that brought us all together is that even though we all we had fun, we went out to parties, we can say that, we drank, but we got our business, we got our stuff done. We got good grades and whatnot, and move forward from that. We took care of what we had to take care of. I met a lot of great people throughout that process, and I met Alejandro, Alex, I would say. Alejandro's his official name, but he goes
Alex for short. Prefer being called Alex.
He likes being called Alex. So I met Alex on the way, and we're really close with all our bros, and we both connected through real estate, and we talked about how our first conversation was like what, Circa?
Yeah.
Yeah. We were at Circa. Shout out Circa boys. We were just talking about how we could potentially, how to flip a home at a very low cost. And so that pretty much brings in our, return on investment and, how we can buy more properties with that being said. And so that connected us both. We both got our license around the same time.
Yeah. And so to introduce myself and say a little bit about myself, I was actually born and raised here in Vegas. A lot of people say that that's rare, but for somebody that's born here in Vegas, obviously I know a lot of people born here in Vegas. So I went to high school out here. In high school, I wasn't too much into sports. I was more of what I would consider a quote-unquote nerd. Graduated within top 5% of my class, advanced high honors. Like, I was always trying to, at the end of the year when you get your transcript, it says, oh, you're student X out of whatever. I was always trying to lower that number. I ended up graduating, I think it was 15th out of 400 and something students. So,
you're him.
Yeah. And then went to UNLV, chose to do biology in UNLV and joined OD-Phi. Shout out OD-Phi. And like what Cesar was saying, just part of the reason why I joined OD-Phi when I was in college is at my first semester, all I was doing was going to class, going home, studying. I mean, I was getting good grades and everything, but it was just very routine, and I just wanted to do something a little bit more. So I joined the fraternity, and how Cesar said, and like how Cesar said, your network is your net worth. So, you get to meet all these people, and a lot of these people are going to go different routes. He went down the hospitality aspect, but on the leader side, and I'll get a little bit more into where I work at before in a little bit too, but some people go down the engineering path, some people end up becoming cops or lawyers or whatever the case may be. So you end up growing this network of people that somebody that does something. It doesn't matter what it is. Somebody that's connected to that industry some way or somehow.
It's a small town overall, though.
Yeah.
Everybody knows someone that knows someone, so.
And so...
Be good to everyone.
Yeah. And while I was at UNLV, so I was serving and being a busser and a bar back kind of before that. So that's kind of what I started doing while being in college. Ended up being good money. So that's what I've been doing for the past.
Keep in mind, a lot of service industry workers, waiters, everything in Vegas, Las Vegas. If you're watching us and you're not in Las Vegas, Las Vegas is a place to be. If you want to be anything like a bartender or waiter in the service food industry, you'll get bank and tips. People usually make pretty good money in tips.
Yeah. So
Alex was making pretty good money.
Especially here being on this, how he said, Vegas, being on the strip. People always talk about Vegas. If you live anywhere else in the United States, people always mention Vegas. It's a dream destination, whether for it be weddings, bachelorettes, parties, just come visit. It's just a dream destination. So, people are always coming in. We have the big tourists. So it's working on the strip, which is where I was serving at. Like he said, it's good income. With that being said, I didn't get started into the real estate until I was a little bit later. Like Cesar said, he bought his first home at 21. I bought my first home at 26. And so for me, it was a little bit different. I was making really good income when I was really young. And so, I would make good money and then just spend good money. And I had a little bit of money saved up, but not like substantially.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until I found out I was having a kid where it clicked for me. And I was like, okay, I need to start getting serious about this, especially at that point. I was, 24, 25. So I'm like, I'm starting to get a little bit older.
What was your motivation?
I had my party phase from 21 to 24. Like, I got it out of my system. And I wasn't just like, oh, let me just buy a home. That's when I started diving deep into real estate as a whole. And that's when I realized I might actually want to be a real estate investor, not just buy my dream home and live there forever. Because I started thinking when you go to retire and later on down the path, I can have these homes and rent them out and have that be my income in retirement. Yes. So once these mortgages are paid 15, 20, 30 years down the line, whatever the case may be, that monthly income that I'm making, I can support myself, support my kids, whatever the case may be. Yeah. Especially with, everybody keeps hearing Social Security is being cut. Don't rely on Social Security. A lot of jobs nowadays don't have pensions. So, I started trying to plan my own way to retire, essentially.
Yeah, each house should be considered like a little mini 401k. At the end of the day, it's an asset that's going to grow.
Yeah.
And even if you don't want to use it as a rental anymore, it's an asset that's going to keep growing in equity and something you can pull from at any time.
Yeah. And so with that being said, my first house that I actually bought, I ended up buying a 2-bedroom, 3-bath, on purpose to begin with. Mm-hmm. Because my thought was I'm going to own this house for a year or two, and then move into something bigger, into a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, 3-bedroom, 3-bath, whatever the case may be.
Right.
Live in that for a year or two, and then just keep moving up until 3-4 houses down the line, I buy that dream home, that house that actually has space. Mm-hmm. But at that point, I have 3-4 houses that are producing a little bit of income in the meantime, and start building up, like you said, that asset. And the good thing about doing that is every time you buy a new house, if you're moving into it, it's considered a primary residence. Yeah. So you only have to put 3 to 5% down, depending on which loan you go with.
Nice. So you bought your home, you're settled in. Mm-hmm. What was the next step for you?
So, like I said, I was already thinking about the real estate market as a whole.
Right.
I now have a kid. Yes. And I'm also making really good money, but, and for people that maybe don't know, as a server, you're always working nights or working weekends or working holidays.
Yeah. It's tough out there.
And at this point, now I'm having second kids on the way. So it's okay, now I have 2 kids. I don't want to be gone all the time. I don't want to be gone weekends and miss out holidays with them, miss out weekends with them.
Time with your family, of course.
And especially,
I guess we're both family oriented. Just because we're Latin or Mexican.
You already know
how it is. Mexican, so we love being around family. Yeah. I think that's very important. And at the end of the time, money doesn't buy time. So
yeah. And so with my kids, at least for right now, it was actually not even too bad right now, because the way it was working out is I was working nights, my girlfriend works mornings, so I'd be able to spend time with them in the morning, and then I go work at night. Mm-hmm. But for example, my oldest is turning 4 this year, so that means he's starting pre-K this year. Mm-hmm. So he's going to be in school in the morning. I would have been at work at night, and that's when I would have never really had time for my kids. And so I was okay, I obviously love real estate. I used to listen to podcasts, articles, blogs, whatever the case may be. Mm-hmm. What can I do to help still make good income, and at the same time, like you were mentioning, help other people get into real estate and still be within that same realm? That's when I decided to become a loan officer. A lot of loan officers work, banking hours. You're still available nights and weekends, but you're available. It doesn't mean you're necessarily working those nights and weekends. So I decided to take the jump, get my license, and it's been great ever since.
And I just want to touch on that, Alex, he's a loan officer. I'm a real estate agent, right? I'm just saying this out loud. Alex, he, as a loan officer, has a lot more power in your real estate transaction than I do. But at the end of the day, you want a really good loan officer, because he's the one that's going to set you up for success, right? He's going to set you up for success. And, a real estate agent can only negotiate for you to maximize every single penny on your end. Not every great agent is going to do that for you because they make profit from not negotiating. I'm just saying it out loud because I'm keeping it real. But he puts in a lot of work, and I admire him for actually going for this. I haven't told you, but I admire you for actually going for it. Only because it's of course with a lot more responsibility, it's a lot more it's harder. So
yeah,
it requires more of his time. So he's actually really, really 100% full gas pedal on it. And I'm proud of him. But at the same time, it's kind of hard to do that and also try to help people on that every end. So he's doing both. He wants to the best for you, and at the same time, sell you a loan. So
yeah, and
he's gonna provide the best options for you. And even then, people need to know the different routes they need to take or can take, or what can lead them to the goal, the end goal of buying a home. And not a lot of people get that informed, right? Sometimes, loan officers might just quit on you and be like, "Oh, you don't have what it takes.
Yeah.
You don't have what it takes to buy a home, so you're wasting my time. Get away from me."
And that was one of the things I was gonna touch on is coming from that Hispanic background. At least for me, my parents are I'm first generation born here. My parents were immigrants, so and it's the same with all my aunts and uncles. So for them, buying that house was their dream, the American dream. And being a loan officer helps me help other people follow that path. I might meet somebody that maybe I look at their stuff and they're not ready to buy right now. Maybe they won't be ready to buy for 2-3 months, maybe even 6. But how Cesar was saying, there might be other loan officers who are "Oh, you're not ready right now, call me when you are."
Yeah, same with real estate agents too. They're like, "Oh, well, why are you wasting my time?" But at the end of the day, that person, and you might not be able to buy. One of my mentors said that from a nightclub. My mentor is from one of the nightclubs. He's like, the secret to this is that person might not be able to afford a table now, but 2 years down the line, they're a whole CEO. You don't know, so you just got to be kind to everyone, really, and kind of help the little guys too.
And one of the perspective you get as a loan officer is, when people start applying, you get to know that person maybe a little bit more in depth than the real estate agent. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but for example, with the agent, maybe he knows what's going on, but he doesn't know, he doesn't look at the bank statements. He doesn't look at the credit report. Okay. So, and those are things that I have to look at, I have to go through the statement. I have to go through the credit report, know what's going on, their pay stubs and everything. Mm-hmm. And there's ways I can for example, help people get to that path. So, some officers might be "Hey, you're not ready. Talk to me when you are," but doesn't tell that person what it takes to get to that point. I'm willing and able to tell people "Hey, follow this path. You're not ready right now, but if you follow this path in 6 months from now, then you will be." Yeah. And I'll touch up every month or 2 months and be "Hey, how's it going? Did you pay that off, or are you saving this money that I told you to, or whatever the case may be." Just touch in with them and help them get to that point where they are going to be able to buy.
Yeah, you're good. Yeah. At the end of the day, that's the end goal. Aside from that, so loan officing,
loan officer,
right? But
loan originating would be the verb.
Right. So that's one of the things that you really want to look into when buying a home, right? And so Alex did it at a pretty early age. Most people don't even have a home at 30, right? And then this brings us, I guess we can say, to our second topic, where one of the main arguments not owning a home is being mobile, right? And this is a thing a technique that we learned that brought us to into our owning multiple, mm-hmm. or in the process of owning multiple properties, is that knowing that you can go with a loan or a certain route that doesn't require so much restrictions, right? So there's different options to choose from, and that's one of the things not a lot of real estate agents and loan officers do is, kind of show you different routes to take in life. And a lot of people have this stigma of if I own a home, it's for me to settle down. And it's not true. My loan, same as his loan, only requires us to live in the home for a certain amount of time. So we lived in that home for that certain amount of time, and we intended to live in that certain amount. We intended to live in that home for a certain amount of time. After that time limit runs out, you can do whatever the heck you want for that house. All you need to keep in mind is that at the end of the day, you own an asset that you put a down payment for, what you can say, $15K.
Yeah.
You put $15 to $20K down, including closing costs and all that stuff. But the asset's worth over $300K, we can say, right? It's worth way over $300K. So at the end of the day, that's your net worth, one. And at two, you have control over that asset. So yeah, being mobile is cool and all, but think about what you were doing last year. You were still in Vegas, bro.
Yeah,
you were still in Vegas, bro. You could have bought a house. You could have had equity. You're still here.
Yeah, and I mean, to touch on that point, like how Cesar said, when you buy a home, you're not stuck with actually living in that home for the rest of the time or until you have that loan. If you buy a house and let's say, 6-7 months go by, you hate the neighborhood or whatever the case may be, you can rent it. Even if you're let's say you're not making income. Let's say you're at the worst break even. Like you have a renter in there that's paying your mortgage and that's it. You're still building equity. And that's what a lot of people don't think about. Yeah. You can move out, maybe rent somewhere else where you want to and have that house just be rented on the side. Basically kind of don't really have to worry about it. Like you said, you're not making money, you're not losing money, it's breaking even. But it's building equity. Mm-hmm. Because every time that renter...
You're goated.
Every single time that renter pays off their payment, a little bit of equity starts building into that home. Mm-hmm. 2-3 years from now, with that equity paying down your principal, and with the real estate market just overall in general, in the most part, now, with COVID going on, there's ups and downs, but for the most part, over history, real estate tends to go up. 2-3 years from now, you had your house go up in price, you had your principal go down. Before you know it, there's like 40-50K in there. That at that point now, if you want to sell that home, you just want to get rid of it, you can sell and you have 40-50K profit that you almost didn't do anything for. You literally, it was just sitting there. Like you weren't making or losing money, but you got 40-50K.
At the end of the day, you don't want to worry about housing. Like you can use housing, like you're born into this world. That's a whole other podcast, I say. But you're born into this world to pay for living.
Yeah.
That's crazy. So make sure, no corporation at this point, that's another podcast because corporations are taking a huge toll in real estate where they want to maximize and control your living. But what I'm saying, have control over your life, over your family's life, over your generation's life, where you don't have to worry about housing. And at the end of the day, if you F up and if you you get fired or something, you come back to a house you own.
Yeah.
You don't have to come back and be like, damn, I gotta pay rent. That's crazy. So, we're buying back our land.
Basically. And this is just a random fact that, for example, I'll throw out there that maybe a lot of people don't know. So usually a lot of time, homeowners are 70 times more, and I don't want to say rich, but wealthy. They're 70 times more wealthy than people that rent.
Yeah.
And 90% of that time, it's not because that homeowner made more money or was smarter or whatever the case may be. It's just because, how I mentioned earlier, your home naturally goes up in equity. Yeah. Especially if you even only have, and you don't want to have, for example, me, I want to have 10 plus homes. And I'm sure Cesar probably does too. You don't have to want that. You can just have one or two. You might actually want to buy your home that you actually want to buy right now, quote unquote, your dream home right now. Your dream home's not going to always be your dream home. It might be your dream home today, but then 5 years down the line, you have 3 kids and 2 dogs.
What she's saying is don't be picky with it. At the end of the day, you're not going to live in that home for your entire life. So your very first home, it has to be very generic, something very rentable, very liked by a lot of people, right? It doesn't have to have specific niche. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That's crazy.
I think what Cesar's trying to say is just, get in the game. Put your, and what we have said earlier at the beginning of the podcast is the biggest hurdle is getting that first home. Yeah. That's always the biggest hurdle.
The key to many is the one.
Yeah.
I said that.
Once you take that first step, the second step is always easier, So, yeah.
That's great. We've already talked about how the steps we took to buy our first home, right? We already talked about that. So now we want to talk about what's going on in the housing market that could, benefit or, kind of change route on a buyer or a seller, right? So right now we're currently in the Las Vegas market. Yesterday, which was, what is it?
February 22nd.
February 22nd, we heard some pretty good news from the White House, right? So early morning, I remember I saw it. They started blowing it up. White House was about to announce, like, buyers incentives or whatever the media said. Basically, they're blowing it all over the news, and something really cool happened though. From HUD. HUD, if you don't know, it's the Federal Department of Housing
Urban Development.
Yeah. So they're in control pretty much of the entire nation's housing market, and they released that
yesterday.
Yeah, they released it yesterday. If you can talk to them.
And so basically, the way it kind of works is, and so with HUD, they do government loans, which is for the most part FHA. There's also USDA and VA loans, and those do exist, but the main government loan that people do is FHA. Usually, if you do less than 20% down, the lender looks at you as a little bit more risky, and that's not a bad thing. It's just, the government stepping in and being like, hey, we're going to somehow back this loan. The way they do it is they charge a MIP, the mortgage insurance premium. So every month you pay a certain amount to kind of have the government be like, hey, if you were to default on this loan, then we'll make sure the lender's covered and they're paid off.
MIP stands for
mortgage insurance
principal.
Yeah. No, mortgage insurance premium. Yes. And that's with the government loans. With conventional loans, there's a similar thing, but it's called PMI, private mortgage insurance, because that's
a conventional.
That's conventional.
PMI, but they're both essentially the same.
They're
thing.
essentially the same.
Usually, a lot of first-time home buyers run into the situation, right? Because at the end of the day, if you're buying a home at $320,000,
most people don't have $60K to put down.
It's over $60,000 that you have to put down just as the down payment, right? It's not including closing costs, any rehab, any fixtures, any stuff like that, any credits. Like it doesn't. It's just down payment. So 20% is usually not the way to go for a lot of people. And then if you're investing, it's usually not the best way. Investors usually focus on putting as little to none money as possible down. That's the whole reason of investing. So PMI and MIP is usually has a bad stigma to it because a lot of first-time home buyers think that they need 20% to put down, and that's not true at all. No. So they're like, "Oh, I need 20% to put down because I don't want to pay PMI or MIP." I'm like, "Bro, like you don't need that." Like,
and
you
so
really don't need that. And so this is the thing that Alex is explaining, that back government loans are going to take a role, and they're trying to help in order to increase buyers. So, I mean, if you could tell us a little more.
And so, at least with conventional, and I will just touch on it really quick just to kind of see the differences. With conventional, the monthly payment you make, it's very dependent on your credit score. With government loans, it's really not. There's a certain amount, and for the longest time, it's been 85 basis points. For people that aren't in the real estate market, 85 basis points just means 0.85%. You're charged that off your loan amount every year divided by 12. So on a $300K home, that amount would be $75.
Yeah.
So that's $75 that you would know. So it'd be,
if you buy a $400,000 home, your MIP will be about $280.
A month. A month. Yeah.
If you buy that home, but if you buy the home at March 20th, which when they will put that in effective.
I will cut you off real quick. It goes
$180.
Yes. It goes into effect March, and this is why it's a good thing for us to be doing this podcast. Because, for example, that's something that you didn't even notice.
Let alone, like, this is not scripted. Like, we're just, like, we just know our shit.
Yeah.
Like, we just know it.
So if you read, no, but it's okay because you're a real estate agent.
Yeah,
like, it's my job to know. At least when it comes to this, it's my job to know this. It goes into effect March 20th. That's when it goes into effect for the loans that the government starts buying. Usually they start buying loans that are 1 or 2 months already closed. So I've already had, and I'm a broker. I don't know if I've mentioned that. I don't work with one specific lender. I have multiple lenders I can work with and choose, and it's one of the reasons why I would say go with a broker, because they can kind of pick the best one for you. Yeah. I've already had multiple emails today of lenders saying, "Hey, we're taking this into account starting on Monday, so the 28th. Yeah. So as soon as Monday, any FHA loan that closes Monday forward, they're taking that discount into account starting Monday." So even somebody that was like already in process, they have escrow and they're clear to close. What did I say? That goes into effect March 20th. But I'm saying it technically goes into effect like Monday. Okay. So starting Monday, anybody trying to get, and even people that already had, so people that were in the process, and let's say their closing date is March 1st. Right. Even though like they already got their LE, their loan estimate, and their CD, their closing disclosure, and all of it said that they were going to be paying 0.85. Yeah. It will be reduced to 0.55 since they're closing after the 28th.
Yeah. So they got a dibs on that.
Yeah.
So folks, you are here. You're first ones to hear that. You can get it in, what was it?
28th March, Monday.
That's literally February. Like. That's pre-release type stuff. Like,
so, and I mean that will happen a lot. There'll be a lot of times where like either conventional or FHA, they'll release things and they'll say, "Oh, it goes into effect at this point in time." But a lot of lenders will start taking it into effect like almost right away.
So we got that date,
and I feel like we might have a little bit of disagreement here, but I think it's a good thing. I think they're dropping it down from 85 basis points to 55, which is a little bit more than a third.
0.3%.
Yeah, they're dropping it 0.3%. A third would be 0.28. So it's still a little bit more than a third. But what I was saying earlier about the 75, I had already done the math on the 300K loan. I'm thinking you did it on the 400K. So on the 300K loan, you'd be $75 a month. I don't know about you, but $75 a month is $75 a month.
Yes, true.
And in a 12-month span in a year, you're saving about $800 to $900.
We can both agree on that.
Yeah. So, and I think where you're going to disagree is like, is $75 going to make it or break it? Maybe not. But it's something that they're doing to try and help. Like.
Mine's a little like, my side's a little like a whole other podcast type stuff about the economy and where it's actually heading. Yeah. And where it's actually heading, right? So, yes. On a $400,000 home or on a $300,000 home, you can save either from $75 to over $100.
$125, you said, right? At 400?
I did the math on that one. At $400K, your MIP is going to come out to $280. And with this new rule, it's going to come down to $180, right? Or it's going to raise your purchase power by $20,000.
Yeah.
So that's another thing, right? So what happens when you give Americans a stimulus check, right?
They spend it.
That's what I'm coming down to.
Okay.
They're going to spend that money, right? From my point of view, it's like, first of all, it's an FHA backed loan. Conventional, an FHA loan, you have to stick with the MIP, with this property insurance, mortgage insurance for the life of the loan.
Life of the loan, yeah.
Right. We can always refinance to another loan, right?
But that's one of the things I was going to say.
You were going to say that.
I was going to say it real quick.
I know you were going to say that.
Because a lot of people hear that. Okay, I'll let you finish. Go ahead.
I know you can refinance to another home, right? But what does that require?
For you to qualify for the new
Not
refinance.
only qualify, but you need more money to put down, right? So off the foot, on my point of view, we want to set you, this team right here that's going at it, we want to set you up for the best possible loan for the near future to just carry, right? If any circumstance to go wrong, right, you know that you have picked the right route. So with that being said, if anything does go down, you know that you can always refinance later at a lower percentage interest, right? At this time, we're not seeing interest rates go down anytime soon. Before 2020, it was always been 5+%.
Yeah.
We never heard of 2-3%.
No, that only happened because of COVID.
At any time. But, since that was the norm, at this point, like when people run for elections and stuff like that, that is their goal. Their goal is to please everyone at that point. We're not going to go there, but my point of view is that they're either raising $20K in purchase power or lowering $100 for a reason, right? Because they know that they have to recoup and they need to. They know something's gonna go wrong on this side, so they want to make sure that the real estate market has some type of leverage.
Okay.
So that's my point of view. At the end of the day, I would refer my buyers or whoever it is to always go conventional, because you can cancel after you buy down your 20% principal, right? So after 20%, you can cancel the PMI, which is the same thing as an MIP, without even having to refinance. So if you buy today in this market, we're not talking about a year ago or 2 years ago, because if you bought 2 years ago, you're good. You're fine. Like you have a great rate. You have a great rate. You don't need to refinance anytime soon unless you emergency need that money to pull from your equity. And you have equity still. You probably most likely still have equity. But if you buy today, moving on forward, if you go FHA with $100 down from your MIP, I would still advise you to go conventional route. Only because you can cancel up to when you pay 20% down, and you don't have to refinance later down the road when you think you have to refinance. So that's pretty much my argument.
I mean, and at least for me on the loan officer side, I don't have anything against FHA loans.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Actually, he wasn't even arguing that. We're just trying to advise you with the best advice. Yeah. And he thought, that this is a very good signal, right? And it is a good signal because FHA, you qualify with a lower term on credit score, right?
Yeah. So FHA, since it's a government loan, government-backed loan, usually you can have a little bit of a lower credit score. A lot of lenders would do 620, but some are able to go down to 580. So you can go as low as 580. You have a little bit of less money down. You have 3.5.
Yeah.
Versus with conventional, there is some 3%, but they have stricter guidelines over the easier one is 5% down.
I had 3.5% first time home.
Yeah. So you did FHA.
But they did check every single little shit. Like your smoke detector had a carbon monoxide detector.
Yeah, that's one of the
just those small things.
Yeah, right? So with FHA, since it is, like I said, government backed, when you do a home appraisal, yes, they're gonna check that the roof is not leaking. You need to have flooring. The house needs to be in a livable condition because it's, like I said, backed by the government. Obviously, if something was to go south, they want to make sure they can sell the house and recoup the money essentially. So they're kind of CYA covering their asses. But yeah, so it allows a little bit of a lower credit score, less money down, and that also allows a little bit of a higher debt to income ratio.
Yeah.
So with people that have student loans. So honestly, recently FHA has kind of been a good option for a lot of students barely coming out of college, because they're coming out of college and now they're making good money, but they also have that high student loan. And FHA allows you to go a little bit higher in debt to income ratio, where you're allowed to have that student loan, maybe a couple credit cards, and you'll still qualify. With conventional, maybe they wouldn't want you to have credit cards and you can have student loan, or you can have credit cards but not student loan. So, but yeah, I mean, if you can go conventional, that's always the goal. If you qualify for conventional, I'd say go conventional. I agree.
Qualify.
But if you don't qualify for conventional, you do qualify for FHA, there's nothing wrong with FHA.
Yeah, definitely.
So I think we're on the same point.
Yeah, we're on the same point. We're literally on the same point. And we're
saying the same things, just in different words.
We want the best for you. That's what it comes down to.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I'm glad we had that talk. That's literally all what the news is blasting about. At the end of the day, they're going to say, wow, don't get me wrong, we negotiated deals down, and, we brought down buying points down, and we had sellers, pay for that as well. So it came out of no pocket.
Yeah.
And this on top of that, FHA's discounting, blah, blah, blah. But this is what they're discounting. They're discounting almost $100 off your bill.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's nice, but
and I will say that if you're listening to this podcast, at least right now when we're at end of February, beginning of March of 2023, right now is honestly probably a great time to buy because of what he just mentioned. The loans that we've been closing have been having seller credits. That's been unheard of for the past 2-3 years. For the past 2-3 years, you have to have, and what we've been talking about, your 3.5% down for down payment. There's also closing costs, and closing costs are another, usually about 2 to 3% on top. So in reality, you need 5.5 to 6% to actually buy a home to be able to pay your down payment and your closing costs. Closing costs are things like your appraisal, your title fees, your taxes, HOA fees, insurance, things like that you have to pay for. And so 2-3 years ago, people were needing to pay for that themselves. Right now, since the market is kind of slowed down, it's a little bit of a buyer's market. Sellers are willing to contribute seller costs, and they've been basically paying all the closing costs. So you right now only have to have that 3.5%, versus 2-3 years ago you needed that 3.5% plus your closing costs.
Yeah, definitely. With that being said, I mean, we are in the Las Vegas market. We have a lot of things like going on. I know that we have news that is spread throughout, social media and whatnot. Most of the time, you have to be aware of what market that goes into. Every market is different. Right now, like I said, we're in the Las Vegas market, but most of the time they cover national market. And other markets are actually up right now. And that's one thing I want to talk about. Is like other markets are up right now. Like, they can say like North Carolina, Connecticut, all those places that you might not think. All the Middle East is like up right now in their prices. And right now we're in like the top 15 cities that have depreciated. Like we've been down in the market value. So with that being said, it's literally an opportunity for you to get in, right? There's a quote by Warren Buffett is, buy when those are greedy. I mean, sell when those are greedy. Buy when those are fearful, right?
Yeah.
And you'll be like, what? Like, what's he talking about? But like, at the end of the day, like when those were greedy, when everybody wanted to buy a home, it was at the time where everybody was outbidding everybody, right? And when people were scared to buy a home because they think that the house market is gonna keep going down, like, yeah, it might keep going down, but it's down right now. It's down, bro. It's right now. It's down.
It's already gone down.
That's when you buy. It's when people are fearful, and then there's no competition. So, with that being said, moving forward, I kind of want to hear your take on where the market is heading. Because I have a mind of my own, but we might. Yeah. I think we're pretty much on the same page. How do you think the market's gonna go from there?
Well, you should tune in to the next episode to find out.
You should definitely tune in to the next episode to find out how the Las Vegas market is going to do and how the national housing market is going to do. They're two very different things, but at the end of the day, the market is like, it's one. It moves as one, right? And same thing with stocks. Like stocks, the economy, every little event takes a toll on the entire market as a whole. Yeah. Like market manipulation is literally a thing. And I
mean, especially with us being here in Vegas. Like you were saying, Vegas is definitely a niche market. We're very close to Cali people that have been wanting to move.
He's going there.
I'm just throwing a little bit of hint.
Tune in to the next episode.
All right.